All right, so the next one we have here is the Smack Attack plugin here. And Smack Attack is interesting for a couple of reasons. It's basically a transient shaper, which is going to help you sort of mold the beginning of any sound. Oftentimes this is used on drums, but not always. You can use it on 808's as well. Go ahead and pull it up here for you. There's only a few parameters, right, that need to be set here. You've got your attack and sustain, and then how you're going to be shaping the sound here. So I'll go into further detail in a Smack Attack video in the future. Just to put it simply, what we're going to be doing is controlling the very beginning of the 808. So I'm sure you guys have had 808s in the past that either had a strong attack at the beginning, which made it hard to mix it and the kick together because it was just too much, or vice versa. You know, you wished it had more. And this is a good way to do that, right? So I will raise and lower the attack on this 808, show you how that molds with the kick and the rest of the beat. So if I wanted to raise this attack and nix the kick altogether, you could do that. I'll show you what it sounds like. Similarly, we can nix the beginning of the 808 as well. So if we want to soften the beginning, we would lower this number. And you'll often soften the beginning of an 808 if it's just too much, or if it's too punchy, or if you're having trouble blending it with your kick. That's a good way to do it. There's a ton of other uses for this plugin, many of which I'll go into in a future video, but that's about all we're going to cover for Smack Attack. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is called Saphira, or Saphira. I'm really not sure how to say it. I think it's Saphira. And this is a saturation/distortion plugin. These are great for 808s for a number of reasons. They can give it, sort of that edge, like I was showing you with the Berserk earlier. But this one's unique in how easy it is to use and how many options you have available. So if you're not familiar with saturation, I'll put up in the top right corner a link to my kick saturation video, which will explain it in further detail. But basically what you have here is two things. You have got even and odd harmonics. So these are second or third order harmonics. Some of these, they coincide more with tape saturation, and some coincide more with tube saturation. It just kind of depends on the type of sound that you're looking to create. If you're looking for warmth, or if you're looking for a bit more edge. And that's how they have them labeled. So additionally, they've got a tape saturation option here. And they give you quite a few options as far as the type of tape saturation that you want. Generally speaking, the higher the number, the greater the clarity of the sound. So 7.5 would be definitely like more of a lo-fi type sound, just to put it simply. So I'll toy with this a little bit so you can hear the differences, and yeah, hopefully it'll make more sense. So I'm going to raise the return on even harmonics and let you hear the difference. You can really drive it if you want. Or you can turn it off altogether and just focus on odd harmonics, or vice versa. So let me go ahead and raise the odd. So you can see there, like when driven, they create different types of sounds, right? So depending on what I would be looking for with this 808 in particular, it has tons of different options on where you could go with that. Ultimately, I use the Berserk distortion more than Saphira, but it definitely has its place, especially with vocals and 808s. All right, so next we're going to be looking at an old school one. It's going to be Bass Rider, and this is generally used more for people that are playing like bass guitars when there's variance in volume and you don't want to use a compressor. But this can also be used for 808s, and the situations that you would use this in would be if you have 808s that are super high and super low, and they have different velocities and different volumes. Sometimes those higher 808 sounds will overtake the lower ones. So Bass Rider is a great way to control the volume. It operates very similarly to Vocal Rider. If you've ever used that, let me go ahead and pull it up for you here. Basically what you're doing here is you're picking a target volume. This is how loud I want my 808 to be, for example. Gives you some different options on like detection and ignoring, just to create different types of sounds. There's a ton of different presets as well. And what we're doing here is we're controlling the dynamic range of the 808. So basically, the 808 won't be any quieter than this, and it won't be any louder than this, right? So you can control it to the point where it feels hyper compressed, or you can just kind of control those transients with a bass guitar or an 808, and it works really well actually. So let me go ahead and show you how to do it. All right, I'll play it dry. Turn on the rider. Now, if I wanted to decrease the range here, I could always lift this. And it doesn't get any quieter than that. So, you're not going to hear a huge difference in this beat particularly because I just don't need a bass rider. But you'll find if you buy this plugin that there are tons of times with those 808s that are just problematic that you can throw this on there and it'll fix a lot of your problems actually. So that's Bass Rider. Okay. All right, so the next plugin we're going to look at is the C4 multi-band compressor. This one you can do all sorts of stuff with this plugin. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. Basically what it's doing is adding compression to various bands that you can control. So, if you have an 808, for example, that has a really distinct low end that you want to accentuate, you can choose to compress that and boost it. Vice versa, if it's something that you want to control the sound of, you can compress it once it gets above a certain volume and dip the sound down. So the way it works is here, I'll just focus on this first band. Just like a regular compressor, I'm setting a threshold here, and anytime the sounds in this band are getting above minus 24, it's going to start compressing, and it's going to lower it by 11. So you got attack and release settings just the same. You can also boost the gain, and I'll show you this. This is not going to be necessary on this one, but I'll show you some of the ways that it can shape the sound. So let's see what it sounds like with this first band, compressed. Sounds very tight. Of course, the low end has been reduced, but it can really be used to control the low end of 808s. This is kind of how I have used it historically. It's not always necessary. It is one of those plugins that you kind of have to work at, kind of have to practice with, or else it's easy to really mess up. But you can change these bands. So if you wanted to focus on 60 and below, 60 hertz and below, you could do that. You could also solo the sound here, hear what that sounds like. And similarly, I can boost as well with the compressor. So yeah, there's tons of different things you can do with the C4 plugin. Oftentimes this is used for mastering or vocals, but it can be used just as well for 808, so I figured I'd show you. All right, and last but not least, we've got the LA2A, and I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with this compressor. It's one of the most commonly used compressors around the world, and it works really well for 808s for The main reason being that it has a really slow attack. So that'll allow the transients to shine through while also controlling that back end of the 808. So that's really all there is to it. As far as the LA2A is concerned, I usually shoot for between 2 and 4 decibels of gain reduction, and then I play with the gain accordingly. So I'll just kind of toy with it here and you'll be able to hear the difference. It's important not to over-compress, otherwise it can leave your 808 sounding dead, as you can hear. But if you dial this in just right, it sounds really good. This is what we're going to be shooting for here. So I'll play it dry. And you'll hear how much heavier it sounds with the LA2A. Has so much more presence than before. But yeah, I mean, the LA2A is great for a ton of different things. That's why it's used so much. But I figured I would end with that one because it's more familiar. So that's all we have for today. Those are my 8 favorite Waves plugins that I like to use on 808s. Hopefully I didn't confuse you too much or throw too much information at you. If you're interested in seeing more tutorials of mine, feel free to go to the channel. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed what you've seen, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, bye.